Okay.
You ready? Yes, ma'am. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go by this clock, and it says 1:08 p.m. Monday, April 24th. So I think the first thing we wanted to kind of go through is just to wrap up on the performance review portion that I know the subcommittee was still talking about. So Chase, do you want to give kind of an overview of where we are on that?
Sure. So the Performance Review Committee met again right before this meeting, and we looked at the changes that you guys penciled in on that matrix last week after we actually last met. Made a couple of minor changes to that, but let me start by reading the language the recommended language in the draft Article 12, the Performance Review, and you should have copies of it. And I'll be referring to letter C under Section 1. So the performance review includes evaluating the candidate's overall performance to include a measure of past performance in the promotional rating. This is accomplished through a point system outlined in the attached promotional examination performance matrix, attachment B. You should have that as well. The candidate will receive up to 100 points, which will be 20% of the promotional examination score. Candidates begin with a balance of 50 points. Positive conduct will earn up to 50 points, and up to 50 points will be deducted based upon negative conduct. The total remaining points form the total performance review score. These reviews have a look-back period. And it's different depending upon the rank that you're competing for. The look-back period is 2 years for corporal, 3 years for sergeant, and 5 years for commander. The performance review evaluation is as of the date of the assessment center. So in other words, the look-back period starts the date of the assessment center and looks back either 2, 3, or 5 years, depending upon rank. And then if you will look at the matrix, which should be at the top, it says attachment B. You'll see that there are points for positive conduct at the very top of the matrix, and then deductions for negative conduct at the very bottom. And it's pretty easy to see how those are calculated. One change, the top remained unchanged, I believe, from what we saw from you guys last time. There were some changes in the bottom. To make it clear that demotions, these are disciplinary demotions that we're talking about. Demotion is a form of discipline in 143. Letters of reprimand are not discipline, and so that wording was removed. And the points are a little bit different. We removed counseling, letters of counseling, and they just made it for letters of reprimand, they're worth 5 points each. And just understanding that you can earn a maximum of 50 positive points to add to your initial 50, and then there's a maximum 50 points that can be deducted on the negative side. So you can't go above 100, you can't go below 0. And that's where we ended up. Any questions? And of course, there's opportunity to caucus on that if we need to.
Yeah, let's we can move on, and then we can decide what we'll caucus.
I think that's really the main outstanding issue. We came to tentative agreement. I know we need to sign, but we came to tentative agreement on the role of the arbitrator, limiting that, as well as the streaming of the meetings will go into ground rules next time. The term of the agreement, and then pay. So really, it was just this one outstanding article that we have on our list that needed to be finalized. So anything else on y'all's end that needs to be discussed before y'all need to caucus on this?
No, I briefly discussed an issue with Linda about pay scale, and that can be taken care of very easily just through changing the couple of the steps and adding, right?
It's just adapting for lateral entry so we can make those adaptations.
Right.
With everybody's agreement after we sign.
Yes.
and so that doesn't change any of the bottom line stuff.
No, it doesn't,
It's just clarifying.
right?
Okay, how that's gonna work, okay.
So
Just
if
clarification,
somebody gets
that's
here and
it.
can slide over, we need a number there. So percentage-wise, we just need to plan it down, so it's really an administrative function.
It doesn't affect anybody currently, it's
Okay.
just
For lateral entry.
based on the language in the contract, it may or possibly could have an effect one day.
Okay, okay.
So all she's gonna do is
So do y'all wanna caucus on the performance reviews before we sign the stuff that we have TA on?
Yeah, give us just a short, maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
I think. Where do you want us to go?
Chief, would you mind walking them back where we were?
I could do that.
Okay,
Just,
I missed you, Eric, and Jared.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. It's 2:07. I want to report back on y'all's caucus.
Yes, we had one there was a bit of confusion, and I think we'll use an example. I think Aaron has the example on, when you read it, it says, based on the maximum value of 100 points, positive conduct earns a maximum of 50 points, and up to an additional 50 is deducted for negative conduct. There was just a bit of confusion for us on where that maximum or that negative takes effect. Aaron, would you elaborate on that?
So what we're looking at, right, it's still a 0 to 100 scale.
Yeah.
But say that you got something for 16 days, right, so it's a minus 50. Everybody starts at 50, so that's a minus 50, but over the course of, if you're looking at Commander, right, 5 years, can you not redeem yourself? And if the max you can redeem is 50, then you're just back at 50 in the middle. If you did whatever multitude of things and you earned 120 or 75 points, right, would you end up then not having a cumulative 75? See what I'm saying? 50 plus 75 is 125, then minus the 50 negative puts you at a cumulative 75 times the 0.2 to get your score.
We talked about that, but the way it is right now, unless we change it, is you couldn't go over the 100.
Right.
Total.
Total.
So even if I earned 1,000, I'm at a plus 1,000, the most I get is 100. I can only get 20 points.
Well,
total.
you couldn't go above 50 or below 50. That's the way it is right now.
Yeah, because you're already getting 50.
Additional, I mean.
Yep. That's correct.
So
It's got to be
let's say you
capped.
had, let's say you had enough positive behavior to get you up to 150 points. The way it's written right now is it's capped at 50.
Right,
50
so they only get 100.
Only 100.
Yeah, that's right. We
But
want
you
that part to stay.
cumulative, right? So if you got negatives in there as well, and it brought you down to 75, that's between 0 and 100, so you get 75 points.
No, I
Or
think
75
almost
times.
two separate components. Two separate components, each capped at 50 positive, 50
I think
negative.
y'all are overthinking, making it more difficult than it needs to be. When you got 0 to 100, that's the most you can get. If I have a negative 40, I still only get 0. If I have a positive 190, I get 100 max. But you do all the math in the middle there and see where it ends up. But the most you can award is that 0 to 100. Because that gives you the opportunity to, if you're a big mess up, it brings down positive things, but conversely, if you did one thing and got suspended at some point, we got a large number of points taken off. If you shine and you've learned your lesson and you do positive things for the next 2.8 years, if you're going for sergeant or whatever, that overrides that one mistake. And it could go both ways. You might do one little positive thing, but you've done a bunch of mistakes and that takes it away.
So you're suggesting don't cap the 50 negative or the 50 positive.
Correct.
Just do the math, and at the end, no matter where you end up,
The cap
it's
is
just the
0 to
maximum.
100. You cannot have
Yep.
any more than those.
That's correct.
Any more, any less.
Well, first of all,
Change
there was
the
no
intent.
you all. It was
the association came up with, the starting baseline of 50. And we negotiated from that point. So we had that conversation, and the agreement that came back even as of this week was, y'all still wanted to start with a benchmark of 50.
Correct.
So your subcommittee is the one that propagated the idea of starting with 50.
Right, because Joe,
Right.
average officer, who doesn't have a sergeant who puts him in for anything, but he just does his job, we're not gonna punish him for doing his job acceptably. He's gonna get a mid score of 50, right, which is 10 points in general. It's up to that person to go up or down from there.
We still want to come in with 50, we just don't want to cap each section at 50, we want to make it 100.
Right.
That way, if someone has multiple suspensions, they can't just cancel that out with some of these positive conducts. Conversely, if someone just has one small suspension several years ago, we don't want that one to not be able to be outshined by a lot of positive activity. So it could work either way, positive or negative. We just want to take out the 50 in each category. We still want to come in with 50.
The captain come in at the end.
In the whole grand scheme, the most they can still earn towards promotional points is 20.
Yeah, at the end, once it's all
And they can
totaled
only
up.
get 0, you can't get negative, you can't take away from their test and their assessment based on this. But this portion of it is still a 0 to 100, which is a 0 to 20 score.
So let's say a sergeant early in his career, right? Messes up. 4 years to return, right? I mean, to work hard and do better.
I think the idea behind trying to cap both positive and negative is, particularly with positive conduct, is you don't want there to be an incentive there to try and game the system in any way through solicitation of positive commendations or whatever, just to, as you said, counter an old suspension. You want those things to be organic and natural. And so if we say that there's no 50-point cap to the positive, then we may want to consider.
Well, there's no cap to the negative either.
Yes, sir.
I mean, if we're not,
Yeah, we want to do
There's not-
it.
we want to do away with the cap for both of them. That, I think that's the misconception, because, I mean, if you have a young sergeant who, I'm not gonna say he's a bad sergeant, he just might make some bad decisions early in his career, does he cap out, or does he have 4 years or 3 years that he can try and do his best to redeem himself because he's chosen, hey, I'd like to promote. Maybe that wasn't a thought in my younger years, but it is now.
But you did see there are some time caps in here, right?
Right.
Is that the, that window's like?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the 2, 3, and 5.
I don't think it's a big deal, honestly.
Yeah, but there wouldn't be, I know we're using the maximum for just positive points, but we meant for both positive and negative, there wouldn't be caps for either one.
So we would just remove this line.
Which one?
At the very top. Right after it
It's
says
on the
maximum
matrix.
100. you take
Well,
that 50 and 50 is the top.
Down here. And then, oh, here too. Yeah. In the top description paragraph as well.
Do we need to talk about this?
We have the modified language, so.
You just have to remove this part of the sentence.
We need to caucus line it again.
The baseball
Their proposal. I think we're gonna go ahead and,
Give us 10, 15 minutes and we'll
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and get started again at 2:42. So we caucused about what your proposal is and what Mr. Stout, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I want to go back to the conversations that we had in our not today, but our last performance review committee meeting. And it was about the concept of the value of discipline in this process. It's pretty overwhelmingly said by members of the POA on the committee that suspensions when it comes to promotion should mean something, and most people don't want to work with somebody that's been suspended, particularly more than once, right? And so that's why, and I appreciate this, that's why they were weighted heavily on the negative side. We also talked about the concept of, I'm going to say, shopping for commendations in our industry. And y'all know that you see in the private industry, that's a pretty common thing these days. I mean, you can't even go to Academy, Target, wherever, without getting handed a survey, and they pretty much tell us how we did. And I even suggested, or asked the question in the committee meeting, is that something that our industry should be going towards to highlight the positive? And overwhelmingly, the committee members said no. It's not our culture. We don't believe in commendation shopping, so to speak. And so I think we weighted this in such a way that commendations couldn't just quickly nullify the weight of a suspension when it comes to looking at least this little 20% piece of a promotion. And we weighted it that way, I think, because we did not want to incentivize commendation shopping. And our concern continues to be if we do what y'all are asking to do, then we're incentivizing potentially commendation shopping, but particularly by people who've been suspended. We also wanted to come into this process where letters of reprimand carried some weight when it comes to your promotion decisions. And the way it's weighted and right now is one commendation, which are much more common, right, than letters of reprimand, nullifies a letter of reprimand. So for those reasons, we want to stick to where we were at after we left the last committee meeting, and just want to respectfully remind you guys that the committee members were on board. And also respectfully remind you that this is 20%, right? So I don't know that it's worth, dying on the sword over. So that's where we're at.
I think I think the committee members, I think they did a good job in laying those things out. Their concern was after we started discussing it, and of course everybody always comes up with a different scenario, right, where things can play out differently. And so I think that's where we were at. We were looking at these scenarios where, okay, this could really hurt this person if they're doing everything right and they're getting these commendations, but everything's capped at 50. And then the other part is that the scale it can be a little confusing, for an officer looking at that scale to try to figure out, okay, if I have 60 positive points, but I'm capped out at 50, do I get to use that 60 points to figure out that score entirely, or am I capped out just at 50, and then whatever negative I have takes away from that, and those extra 10 points don't count for anything? So I think that there was some confusion there, or we anticipate there might be some confusion there in trying to figure out that score, and so we were trying to make that a little bit simpler. So I think that was the idea behind just doing away with capping it at 50 on the positive and on the negative, and just using that 100-point scale so that your cumulative score should fall within that scale, that 100-point scale. So if you do have that plus 60, yeah, it is going to help you a little bit more, but it works the other way around as too. If you have more negative, it's definitely going to bring that score down as well, and it eliminates that complication of, well, I've got negative 60, so do I only count the negative 50, or do I have to count the full negative 60 and figure out that score? That's what we were trying to address when we thought that, okay, maybe we need to eliminate the caps at 50.
But it's the 20%, and then I think that the
Right.
thing that is I think what balances it, and I hope that y'all think of it this way too, is the timeframe that we're talking about. And I'm sorry, if there is somebody that gets suspended for 16 to 90 days, it's gonna be for something pretty egregious.
And we had that
And I
discussion.
don't want somebody on the PD leadership team, and I don't think y'all
Right.
do either, that just because they've done everything right the other, time that they've been in this role, to be able to promote and be a leader, And so I think that's where, for us, it's really important that for what we're trying to work on, to make sure that everybody knows about the professionalism of SMPD as an agency, you want people in those leadership roles that don't have egregious suspensions and disciplinary records. And especially when it's 2, 3, 5 years, we're getting things that are brought up that are 4 years ago. So that the public's perception of some of these things don't go away as quickly as we would like them to be. And so it's something that we just need to make sure, again, for the overall part of the respectability and the respect for the department and who you have in your leadership roles, I think that's just something that I would feel would hopefully meet y'all's interest too, is making sure that there's not the unintended consequence, that you have people that have these severe suspensions that are able to make it up on the positive side with all the commendations, and then we still have where we're at in terms of trying to defend the leadership of the SMPD. That's not what we want, and I know that's not what y'all want. So it's something for y'all to think about, and that's where we're at, is we just don't want that unintended consequence of us all trying to make the best of intentions with it. And I understand where y'all are coming from, but we want discipline and letters of reprimand to count for something. And I would think y'all would want that too. You only want the best that are really promoting, that have those records, that don't hurt your credibility as an agency.
Right, we don't disagree with anything you're saying, Stephanie. We were just trying to simplify the scoring process a little bit. So like I said, I think that's where we get into this confusion, is when we start capping it, and then you have to look at that number. Okay, am I capped at 50, so do I start from 50 and move down from there, or do I use the 60 and then move down? And then if it falls within that 100-point scale, then is it valid? So I think if we could just clarify here today where that score is going to fall, that 60.
So Jesse, to your scenario, the way the scoring, the one that Ms. Spacek worked out, it'll allow you to add all those points up in the top. So using your example 60, you'll see that 60 we're under total positive content.
Okay.
But then the very next line, if it happens to be above 50, that causes you to drop it back down to 50.
Right.
So there's your cap. Then you move down to the bottom, same thing. You may have, hopefully not, but you may have negative 60, right?
Right.
The next line says, no, can't do that. Negative 50 is the max, then you add it all up.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good. Moving forward, everything again, as Jesse said, we agree with everything that both of you said here today. Those were the same discussions we had in that room. And we thought maybe we were trying to simplify it too much. But we agree that it needs to be part of the process. And so let's move forward. And if we somewhere down the road find that it has glitches or does not, then we'll work on that then.
Thank you. We appreciate
Thanks for consideration.
of that.
Yep.
Is that- I drew on mine. Did you draw yours? need to, I think we're ready to go forward on the role of the arbitrator, the duration, the pay, and the performance of review that we just talked about. So I think and so the next steps would be, I know Chase provided the PowerPoint presentation that we'll be making to council on May 2nd. We just want to make sure that y'all take a look at that. Make sure, you know, that just so we get our talking points also and that we're saying the same message. And then we would be bringing the agreement for council consideration at the May 16th meeting. So we won't plan to upload the PowerPoint presentation in the system until Friday, I think, is what we're shooting for. So hopefully we can hear back from y'all before that time.
Okay, so we're gonna, he's gonna sign these? Are you gonna get us cleaned up versions of these?
Yeah, with the exception of the performance review, I sent a draft. with all
Right,
the
yeah,
records on
we've
Friday.
seen those. And then we'll get those
So we've
talking
done-
points for our members. And then we'll put that together and get it so that we can make arrangements to set the date for the vote. And get that to you, that response back to you as soon as possible.
Need it preferably by the 9th, no later than the 10th. Is there
Let's see.
It's 2 weeks from Wednesday.
You said no later than the 10th?
10th, yes.
That's for the agreement, that the PowerPoint slides are this Friday.
Right, that's for that's the results of the ratification for the
Okay.
10th.
Okay.
And we've got the agendized with the council for May the 16th.
And then May 2nd, regular part of the agenda will be the presentation.
How long of votes do y'all need? How many days? 2 days, 5 days? 3 days? That's long, dude. Yeah. You gotta have it by the 10th. I would actually start it on the 5th through the 9th. I would get everybody through the weekend and 2 during the week. But you could. I mean, you'll be fine here. I'll give you this week to get to all the shows right here. And then you could complete it by the end of 8 p.m. that night.
Our plan is to have all final documents to y'all by close of business tomorrow.
Perfect.
We're just gonna make those adjustments there. She's gonna add that right there. Just make sure we move the handle back to where she was.
Hand wrapping.
Yeah, those are just the ones from previous contract. Looked at those. Let me see that paper. Yeah, real quick.
One of these is ours, Linda. One of these is ours.
Yes. Would you like us to also get you a scanned copy of everything?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
sure.
then just to make sure we're gonna have those, right?
Yeah, because Chris and I were talking about what will go to a
So you guys see it.
increase of 2 years when that increase in motor vehicle, so we need that for them.
Yeah. think so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is our last meeting, and I know we had a really tough timeline and strict timeline to get to, so very much appreciate y'all for working with us, and I think we've negotiated a very good agreement going forward. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.